and welcome to your daily Gameface. I am Dr. Kim Lannon. I am here with Lou, who had to use the restroom last week. Sorry, I have to tell you, I have to rat you out because everyone was asking me, what happened at the end of your show? He just took it over and commandeered it. And I said, well, that's because he didn't tell me he needed to use the bio break. So he shut the show off.
I told you. I just told you at the time.
So Lou the Pooh went to the bathroom.
First time. 31 years in this business. First time.
I know. So anyway, so for inquiring minds, yes, that and my toe is still broken. People said, how's your toe? I said, it's still broken. Okay. So anyway, good morning. And we have a special guest. So we're starting right away without the banter with Lou, even though I got some in. We have Michelle Michelizzi. Michelle Michelizzi is returning to us after quite some time. We haven't had her on in a while.
Unmute yourself, Michelle.
Oh, she's not. She's muted. She's got to unmute. But while she's now we can't hear her. So I'll talk while you and she figure that out. But Michelle's back. Michelle and I have known each other for a very, very long time. I cringe when she posted up that she knew we known each other 50 years. And I was like, she's telling my age.
You just had it.
I know. I can't hear her. Lou.
I know.
Lou, fix it.
We just had it before. So I was good.
Do you need to do something on your side? Sorry, everybody. We're having a minor technical difficulty. But while you're still fixing that, Michelle is joining us from Arizona. She's out in Arizona, and she's up bright and early. And we are getting ready to do, I'm doing her conference tomorrow. I'll promo her while we're waiting to fix this. I'm promoting her conference tomorrow. It's called the Wellness Connection, and it's strategic wellness and unlocking the power of workforce wellness. And I'm actually one of the guest speakers tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking about burnout and how to get resiliency built in teams and so on and so forth. And she has a panel of 4 people talking tomorrow, and it's live in person. And also you can join in on Zoom. And if you want to join, we can post up her link in the show. And also afterwards, you can also pay to join through the link to do
Michelle, why don't you just sign out and sign back in again? You already said it. We did it. We shut everything down to open the show. And
I know.
Nothing.
I understand. That's it. So Michelle just jumped off. Did you tell her to jump off?
Yeah.
She
hasn't jumped up.
There we go.
And she'll come back on. And hopefully that'll solve the issue.
Yes. So, while she's doing that, so tomorrow, I'm going to be, if you guys want to listen in tomorrow, I'm going to be, I think, the second speaker on her list. Is she back?
Am I back?
She is back with voice and audio. Excellent. So Michelle, I'm imagining you could hear me. I was promoting your conference tomorrow out in Arizona. If wanted to join that, they could do that. We'll put the links up for it.
It's events.choosehealthychange.com. I'll put it in the chat.
That's perfect.
Nice.
And I was just saying that what I'm going to be speaking about tomorrow in my little block. And then remember, for people that are wanting to join or sign up for it, it's a great price for a very amazing 2 hours of panelists, including Michelle. And we're all talking about different things about, connectedness to wellness and such, and how to strengthen teams and resiliency, which, of course, I push that over to not just working in a company, but also life itself.
You're talking about rising?
And so here's the thing is Michelle and I are always on this wavelength. We've known each other for a really long time. We hadn't talked in a while, but we always have these telepathic wavelengths that we communicate on. And it's weird because I'll think of her in the shower, and then next thing you know, she texts me or so. And so it was so funny because just a little while ago, she had texted me and said, hey, I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. And she had something in. I'm like, oh my God, I did the Year of You last year. And this year I'm doing Rise on my show and doing this, building the Rise. And she's been doing similar, nice. We're almost exactly, she's doing Elevate, Evolve. And so my Rise, and just in case Michelle hasn't heard, so my Rise acronym for everybody that's been doing a plan this past month and a half since January 1st is to reset mindset, Michelle, and then integrate it, stand up and stand out, and how to do that, and then evolve. And we've been talking about focusing less on outcome goals, but really how to process the journey through resetting your mindset, not getting stuck in like, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, the what ifs, and really being able to rise to your daily expectation and intention and not do these big grand things that fall short and so on and so forth. So you kind of get the theme, even if you've known me long enough, and we've come from that same ilk that we know what it's like to do daily micro goals. So
Romanian drill.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I thought it'd be great to have Michelle come on, because we're both talking about how to get people to evolve and elevate themselves on a daily basis. And that's what sort of, I think you've been, doing with your side of things out there in Arizona. And I thought, what a perfect match to have her come on and talk about it in the way she sees it, even though it's probably going to sound very similar because we're very similar.
It's crazy. You can't spend that, 10 years in the gym together with your literally intertwined legs and arms and everything intertwined for that many years. We really are, we have similar wellness DNA for sure.
We do. She calls us wellness crusaders.
Nice.
Yes. So Michelle, so welcome to the show as usual. And so how about you tell us a little bit about what your side of the rise, elevate, evolve piece is going, and get people excited about that so that they can hear from you, and then I can chime in.
I loved hearing what you had to say first, that you had an acronym, because I don't have an acronym, but we are definitely on the same, miraculously every time we talk. And lately I have to actually get you on a live interview to be able to have a conversation, because we're so busy.
I know.
Most of us are like, I'm driving, talking, brushing my teeth, getting ready for something, actually getting dressed at the same time while I'm, so it's good. It's good that this is actually, everyone's kind of sitting in on an impromptu personal conversation here. So we'll have to be careful about what we talk about.
It really is. As I was driving in this morning, I was thinking, wow, there's so many things I could talk to her about, because I haven't caught up with her in a while, except on, Messenger.
Not publicly, right?
Yeah, we have to be careful.
Well, so I think for me, what happened was about, last spring, I started to feel a little bit of a shift happening. And I think it's because I've been personally elevating and evolving. And so when you personally elevate and evolve, then everything around you, your friendship circle, your business, everything starts to elevate and evolve with it. Because, when the leader rises, so does the other boats, right?
Yes.
So in November, I made a decision to switch up my nutrition partner, and not for any negative reasons, just it was time for a switch. And it was right before the biggest eating time of the year. So I couldn't make the big announce like right before everybody was about to eat turkey. You know what I mean? Nobody would notice. It would have gotten lost in the holiday ruffle. So God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And he made me pause to do the big announcement. And in the pause, which I think is, if ever you're forced to pause and hang out in the hallway, always good things happen in the hallway. We get really aggravated and frustrated. Maybe revenue is affected for a bit. You've got to just, sit on things for a second. But in the hallway, while I was waiting for the holidays to kind of pass, I said, well, wait a minute, let me take a look at all of this and dig in and see, why am I really making this change, And I think that what it came to was that I was only sharing the nutrition part of wellness aggressively or actively online and product-based nutrition. And I definitely always believe in really great products. So I'm still have a product that I stand behind, still stand behind the former products that I worked with. But I started to feel like it was a bit disingenuous because it wasn't holistic. And so I started to take a look at wellness from a holistic point of view and all the pillars, and really drill down into my 9 pillars, because it's, really when people are eating incorrectly, it's usually because one of the other pillars in their life is off.
Exactly.
The job's off, mentally they're off, cognitively they're off. They haven't got a social circle. They just had a change in a relationship. Usually when eating's out of line, it's because something else is out of line.
Yeah, it's a symptom of the problem.
It's a symptom of the problem. It's like, and we talk about my sobriety. I've been sober for almost 26 years now. And, isn't that incredible? Crazy. And the longer I'm sober, the more I realize that booze or, the party or was just really
a symptom
number one for me, unnecessary, because, when you and I are not bitten with a shy bug, I didn't need like booze to be social.
Right.
But
Me
I
either.
realized that I was actually inserting booze where, where feelings should have been, you know what I mean? And I didn't realize it at the time.
Connection relationships, right? Like it was like the substitute for the things that were missing. And for people that do listen, just to chime in really quick, you're calling them pillars, but my listeners know it. I call it the wellness wheel. So if your spokes are filled, right? So just for translatability for people, but yeah, the pillars she's talking about, or my listeners, you hear me call it the wellness wheel. So it's the same thing.
And in a minor shape like a wheel too, and they could have been spokes as well.
Yep.
100%. But as a marketer, I always think in pillars.
Yes, I get it. I get it.
So I took a look at all of those pillars and I thought, well, and here comes Mikey. He's probably going to inject himself into the conversation. You won't mind a cat being involved because you're a cat person.
We love cats, don't we, Lou?
We love cats.
We love kitties, and we really miss them when they go. I'm so sorry about your kitties,
Thank you.
So anyway, I started to really kind of dig into each one of the pillars, and I also would feel really bad if someone reached out to me, say, Michelle, I really want to work with you, but I would say, well, here's my nutrition program, and that's the only way you can work with me.
Right.
And maybe they loved their nutrition program, maybe they weren't into what I was doing, and I thought I have to evolve, I have to expand. So I took a step back, and I basically created a 3-program approach to my business, so that I could address all of the kind of dreams that I had for my own business, but also be able to assist people in different ways. Right. And to do it in a systemized way. Because you and I, it's funny that you mentioned this. You and I grew up in the gym doing Romanian drills over and over and over again. Oh my God, the dip bar, you were a national champion in that one. What was the name of that one?
The planche dips.
The planche dip. Like you could literally hold that thing for, you could, basically we'd all have lunch. Kimmy would still be sitting there. But we were programmed from the beginning of time, really, with both of us, that if you learned each one of those skills well, that when it came time to throw the trick, your body would know, okay, my hips will be here, I'm strong enough to be there. My legs are going to be here, I'm strong enough to be there. And so when it came time to actually throw the trick, we could do it because we had all the components together. Well, you know what? I think that's why you and I are so alike, Kimmy, because we actually build things from the foundation. We understand the power in the pause. And we also understand, I hate that my texts come through my iMac here, so you might get binging here in the morning. But we also understand that if you work on all the components, the spokes in the wheel or the pillars in the wheel, that the whole person comes together. Right. And so the more I dug into it, the more I was like, God, how come I didn't do this sooner? Because I've already worked, my pillars are, and yours are probably very similar. Yeah. I have the core pillars, right? So everybody knows they got to do something for their nutrition. They have to do something physically. They have to exercise. That's the physical pillar. Everybody knows that mentally, cognitively, they need to pay attention to their brain health, more so now than ever. A 26% increase in dementia during the pandemic. I think the pandemic taught us about the danger of isolation and just how dangerous not paying attention to your cognitive health is.
Right. And
then emotional, where, our fifis are super important. In fact, they generate everything.
Right. So
we kind of know we have to pay attention there. And then if we're a little more evolved, we might know about the foundational pillars. We might, if you look at a lot of the wheels out there, it'll be professional or vocational. But living in Sun City has really been like such a remarkable opportunity for me to learn, because people come to Sun City to live in retirement, not die in retirement.
Right.
And I have like a little
point about retirement, Michelle. I'm going to interrupt you because I did, and hopefully don't sidetrack you, but the living in retirement is such a different mindset. Even I try to teach people in their 30s to start thinking about the living in retirement when they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, because people go to die. It's like, it's the God's waiting room kind of mentality. And that's the reset of mindset. But start
everything off until that time where they can magically give themselves permission to take the trip or do the thing. Right. But the more I dug into that, the more I thought, well, it's kind of stupid we ever think about retirement, because if you've watched the Blue Zones on Netflix, they talk about the people that live to 100. Those are the people that continue to have purpose in their life.
Exactly.
And so you might be in a vocational time, and it also aggravates me when people say, "Oh, you're just a mother." I'm sorry, being a mother is the most important job you're ever going to have. You and I weren't lucky enough to get that job.
Right.
I would have killed for that job, but people say, "Oh, you were just a stay-at-home mom."
Right.
Well, God, I literally want to smack people when they say that. I refrain from smacking people.
Well, that's
the Irish and Italian person in me really, struggles with that, because it's about having purpose in your life. And depending upon where you are in which season or chapter you're in, you have a different thing. So I changed that pillar to purpose.
Right.
And so that's a foundational pillar. The other one is environmental.
Yes.
So, for example, I'm in my beautifully renovated kitchen right now. Okay. If I had kept this kitchen the way it was, my mother and I would not be happy here, because it would have been dark and closed in, and it would have been outdated. And so changing your environment, making sure that you're like, right now I'm standing up. I spend a lot of time working, standing up. I'm really grateful that our counter here in the kitchen is like a stand-up desk for me. So I'm working in a smaller space. I'm definitely making sure that ergonomically I'm paying attention to my body. Because if I'm like this all day long for 50 years, what do you think is going to happen? So environmental is very important. And then the other one is financial. If we're not tending to our finances and saving and thinking about finances, when we do get to that point where we can slow down, we can't, because we haven't paid attention. So I've been a licensed financial advisor, so I've covered that pillar. And so then there's the forgotten pillars, and I think this is what I'm really. The more I dig into it, the more I'm really. There's Mikey. The more I'm really. There's Mikey. Pay attention.
See,
the more I'm really.
That moment.
Say hi to Aunt Kim.
That's a pillar. Is the love of a fur baby. You have to have
that's babies. Having fur babies. So the next one is social. People think, oh, social is like something that you should be doing kind of after the fact thing. No, social is really important. We learned, like Mikey right now is being social with us. We learned during the pandemic that that he's gonna be in the mix now. We're just gonna let him hang in here so he doesn't knock over my computer. Look at him with his little paw. We learned during the pandemic how important social connectivity is. Yes. And as someone in recovery, isolation is the cause of a lot of problems, right?
Yes, and isolation during the pandemic increased alcoholism or overuse of alcohol and substance abuse by like 40% in some studies.
100%. And so the next one in that category is fun and creativity. Okay, so I'm an artist, and I've never looked at my art like, it is a revenue generator for me too in some chapters of my life, okay? But being creative, having hobbies, I ride a motorcycle, getting out there in the community, doing fun things. Let me tell you something. If you're not doing fun things, you're missing the whole point of the other pillars or the other spokes on the wheel.
Right, because
it's supposed to be about having fun. Running, doing marathons. My God, you're a nut job with the marathons.
That's crazy. Not fun.
That's probably in the purpose category more than anything else, or torture. Yes. There might be a torture pillar. Marathons are tough. And then the last one is spirituality.
Yes.
So everyone knows I'm a Christian. I'm not just talking about, okay, here's my Bible, let's thump it together, okay? Although I am a Christian and that is my path, in recovery, one of the things I really learned is that everybody has to pick their own path.
Right.
Everybody has to have a higher power as they understand them. I had a girlfriend that prayed to a rabbit for years. She just was in rehab, and she said,
Lulu's giggling.
That's fun.
It's funny, right? So what happened was she actually passed away early. She was out in rehab. She was in rehab. She looked out the window. She saw a rabbit. She's like, okay, I'm going to pray to this damn rabbit. And she did. She prayed to a rabbit for the length of the time that I knew her, until she had an accident, broke her neck, and ended up passing away far too soon. The day that she died, when I pulled into my garage, there was a damn rabbit in the driveway. I kid you not. So, having prayer, meditation, yoga, something that you're connecting to something bigger than yourself is super important. So those are my 9 pillars. And so I created the Elevate Wellness community to address those pillars. And the other thing that I think you probably can relate to is that I've been a personal trainer, a yoga teacher, and a health coach for 42 years. And I think about the real reason why people hired me. It wasn't because they needed me to train them, even though I did train them.
Right.
They needed an accountability partner.
Yeah. That's what it is.
So that's why I created the Elevate Wellness community, and we'll talk a little bit more about the workforce, the workforce piece of it with the wellness connection, and the nonprofit piece with the growth edge. But let's talk about these pillars a little bit more and how what you're thinking about it before we dig into that part.
Well, okay, so this is so good, right? Because this is like what I talk about, but in terms of the rise. So I've been breaking all those the wellness wheel, the pillars down on a weekly this year since the first of the year, really to incorporate how to get people to stay on a daily, intentional, microscopic journey so they don't fail. Although failure is important, but so they don't have the, the 2 weeks in, the Friday fail of like, oh, I didn't do the 40 pounds that I wanted to lose in 2 weeks in January or all those things. So I've been doing it as a reset of mindset on a daily. Check in when you wake up in the morning, reset your mindset. Where's your head today? And to the point of what's our purpose for the day? Is our purpose, and I break it down to people, and Lou and I talk about this. Did you make someone smile today? Because people always go to, well, what's my purpose? I don't have any today. Well, yes, you do. I mean, is it to open the door for someone? Is it to make sure that you send off a quick email that you wanted to that you haven't? Like, it's so basic, and it's about stacking wins. So in my RISE acronym, it's about how to stack wins and let them be accountable to yourself, that everything counts, and not to poo-poo it or to dismiss something small because it's not, you didn't run a marathon. People say, but I don't run a marathon, using that example. It's like, you don't have to run a marathon.
You're not crazy.
The stairs, did you say?
Because they're not crazy.
Well, it's true. And certainly I'm running it with a broken toe.
That's a pathological pillar right there.
And he told me it's a pathological pillar. So I'm a
marathon running is pathological.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so the RISE piece is to reset the mindset, and then how to integrate it on a weekly. So I've been helping people build like a 30-day plan monthly, but how to integrate daily to then make yourself either stand up in some way, or stand up for yourself, advocate, have self-agency, or be out in the world having more of a stand up. Like, how do I stand up every day for myself? That doesn't mean you're speaking up for yourself, but it might be, but it comes in different forms depending on things. But at the end of the day, and the end of the week, and the end of the month, how is it elevating you, in your word, or how's it evolving you, making you feel more enriched by looking at yourself first, so that then if you're a helper to others, how does that help you help others more? How does it help you help yourself more? Because what I found in the year of you, because my whole show was year of you. I'm catching Michelle up on this because we haven't had to talk about this. But the year of you was really focusing on being boundaries for yourself, setting them not on other people, how to maintain your own sense of purpose for you. And now we're elevating ourselves to evolve into, how do we rise every day? How do we make sure that we're up, moving with purpose? And that doesn't mean that you can't have, I said, I think a couple weeks in the show ago, that if you want to take a Sunday and you want to watch a movie on the couch and you want to just sit, you're giving yourself permission, because that's part of your rise. Because people don't give themselves permission to do that because they feel guilty that they take time, because then they're not setting themselves on the purpose goal. And like, that's part of your purpose, is you have to have time for yourself and not feel guilty about it. Like, people sit down and they'll yell out, I just sat down for a second. Well, you're allowed. But people like the stay at home mom has to explain herself that she hasn't had 2 seconds. She just wanted to sit down so that everyone knows. And that it's explaining, like, stop explaining yourself. So the evolving is coming from just being able to be with your own self, to say, I'm okay with whatever the things I choose to do, as long as I'm being, to your spiritual piece. Am I kind? Am I compassionate? Am I loving? And is it to myself and to others, but myself first? Because my practice has tons of people that don't put themselves first. They put everybody else. They worry about what everybody else thinks and does, what they haven't done for them, and then they lose themselves in it. And then what we've talked about, and I've been building this plan with people, is they lose themselves, Michelle, a lot of times, at least my clients, in that piece of falling on the sword for others and not really being able to maintain their own self-identity and integrity, because they're too worried about making sure they're doing for others. Well, their whole year has passed them by. And then when they get to next year and we're starting the next phase of this 3-year thing I'm doing at this point, they're like, I fell short this year because I didn't really do, I was only doing for others because I miss me again. Uh-oh, we lost, oh no, we lost audio. Oh no.
Yeah, sign out and sign back in again.
Sign out, sign back in.
I don't know what's doing this. So
is it StreamYard?
No, it's not StreamYard. I don't think. But
well,
yeah, talk about. I think the most important part of this, what we've talked about for the past year and a half now, a year and a couple months, is that whole stacking wins. We talk about it a lot, and it's a lot like physical development, isn't it? And that you get up in the morning and say, I'm going to accomplish this thing, something really small, but you accomplish it. And then you start to feel, all right, you get that done and that's fine. And you realize you rise over that part of it. And so the next week it's 2 things. Or when you get to that Sunday and you want to watch a movie, it's like, oh, I accomplished this week.
Right. And it's giving yourself permission to do it.
We're so often stopped by things that we think are intimidating and we can't do. We just keep putting them off and putting them off and putting them off.
Or that I think one of the big things though is being in that fear space. Michelle's back. Can we hear her?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay. You know, what is interesting to me, again, we're like so on the same path. So I've been doing a newsletter on LinkedIn called Embrace Grit, Thrive on Purpose this year. And I've been thinking about what grit really is. Grit isn't always grinding. I think people think that grit is grinding, but grit is bigger than that. And you're talking about that when you're saying, hey, if I have to spend a Sunday on the sofa, does that make me like I'm failed?
Right.
Of course not, because rest is so important. We talk about the climb all the time and the effort and the doing, but we don't talk about resting. We don't talk about socializing, and we don't talk about taking time to connect with something bigger than yourself. And that's why I'm calling them the forgotten pillars.
Right.
Because if you don't have those things, the rest of it gets really flat, and that leads to burnout, which you're going to be talking about with the Wellness Connection this week. It leads to lack of productivity. And to your point also about throwing yourself on the sword, you and I can talk personally about this for hours.
Yes.
I have thrown myself on the sword like my whole life.
Yep.
And I made a decision to spend an extended period of time in my life single, not dating, not single. I literally have taken that whole piece of life off of the table for a second. And I've been working myself in therapy on that. And what I realize is, God, just like I learned with my alcoholism that I was drinking over my feelings, even though I said, I'm not drinking over my feelings. Right. Now that I've spent an extended period of time on my own, I realize, oh my God, I've been totally putting everyone else before myself and throwing myself on the sword and putting my goals and my dreams and my aspirations like last on the list.
Right. Because I'll get to everybody else's stuff eventually, but that doesn't happen.
And as a caregiver, I'm now an adult child taking care of my mom. And we haven't talked a lot about this yet personally yet either, Kim. My mom moved to Sun City. I'm her full-time caregiver while I'm growing a new business, which is in startup mode again, right? So being the adult child with no siblings to assist, right, of taking care of my mom has made me realize that I have no choice but to drink the water, take the nap, do the thing, because if I fall down and go boom, or I'm at a diminished capacity, then my mother suffers.
Right.
And never have I learned that lesson more than I have in this capacity. So trust me, when I actually am taking more time to make sure that I'm rested, because I'm now sleeping in shifts because my mom is not sleeping as much at night. So we're kind of flipped my weird schedule to being more of a nighttime worker than a morning worker. So this idea of like, how can I still take care of myself while I'm taking care of somebody else has never been, it's been a new pair of sunglasses of which I'm looking at the whole wellness ecosystem.
Right.
Put your mask
on. And
on.
as 11,000 people turn 65 every day in our country, people between 50 and 65 or up are now taking care of maybe older children and also taking care of aging parents.
Right, because they're in the middle.
So we're in that sandwich place. So it's an interesting thing. And I loved what you had to say about the daily, because what I'm doing is a wellness assessment. So when people sign up for the Elevate Wellness community, they take an assessment. They score themselves 1 to 5 stars, like on Star Search, which was last night. I loved watching that last night live on Netflix. So 1 to 5 stars on each pillar, and they choose one thing they're going to work on.
Right.
Not 10 things, one thing in that pillar. So maybe for
Right.
social, it's like, I'm going to make a date to go have coffee with a girlfriend once a month. And you know what,
Right.
Kim, I bet you, believe it or not, this is probably one you need to work on. I'm going to take a second to go have time with my girlfriends.
Yes.
Or
well,
whoever
I
you're-
do that. I do
Oh,
that.
good.
But it's hard because I have
You
to
have to force yourself.
I have to actively work on it. I have to actively schedule in. Like, it started out with like, and literally I would have to take an X off with big Sharpie markers in my book, in my actual scheduler, because I'm old school still. I don't do anything on that digitally. Like,
Yeah.
I have to do that in order for it to be like, and I write no. That's my because that means I can't schedule anything or anybody in there, because I will do exactly what we're talking about. And we've talked about it. I've talked about this on the show a couple years ago. Like, I will absolutely go, oh, I can squish in one more person and it will back it down. By the time I'm done that, there's no more X, no more no. It's now I've got 5 more people in, or I'm doing something else for someone else, instead of being, I was going to go out for dinner, or I was going to do this thing.
But this is where the game is won, isn't it? That X on the calendar seems like a small thing, but it's a huge thing. It's a commitment.
Huge
Yeah.
thing.
Taking $100 and putting in a savings account is a huge thing.
Well,
but
because it's making the
it
commitment
seems
to
small.
yourself.
Yeah. But it's
huge thing, huge. And that's why, and we forget how important it is until, one day we're in the car crying for no reason. We're like, what is going on? Well, you haven't taken a second to let your nervous system stop grinding.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm repurposing the Embrace Grit into really redefining what grit looks like as an entrepreneur for my LinkedIn newsletter. So Embrace Grit, Thrive on Purpose. And I also think that my hashtag is Thrive on Purpose. You and I are right there again.
Yep.
Thriving on purpose is very different than I'm going to start a challenge and lose 15 pounds. And by the way, I have absolutely signed off of the challenge create zone. I no longer do challenges. I had a team that did one challenge after another. And I would say to my clients, hey, listen, this is kind of like it's a bit of a trick, because this isn't really a challenge. This is how we do nutrition.
Right.
This is how nutrition works. This is how it's not a challenge. It's a lifestyle. So I have made
how to
there's
get
no more
people to buy
90 day.
Well, it's attaching purpose to it.
It's he said it's attaching purpose, and I said it's also like, it's putting out there that, like, a different way of like getting people to buy into it without it being
100%.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's trickery, right?
Yeah.
This is like, and I also feel like that keeps us constantly on this grind off grind, which is really great for interval training. You know what I mean? If you're in the gym and you're running and then you're stopping and then you're running and then you're stopping, but that's not really the best way to treat your emotions.
No,
like I'm grinding, then I'm like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Then I'm grinding and oh my God, I'm exhausted. That kind of sets you up for this kind of weakening of the entire ecosphere of taking care of yourself, because you're just constantly trying to trick yourself into taking better care of yourself. Your idea of having daily attention,
yes,
I'm addressing by having weekly Zoom calls.
Right.
I started a school community, and so they score themselves on each pillar, and then on Wednesdays from noon to 12:30 we have a Zoom call, and we check in on, I'll do like a short educational thing about something that I'm focusing on that week with one of the pillars to give some value. And then we're going to check in on personally setting your goals, which I think is another thing that we do. We set goals based upon what we think other people think our goal should be.
Right. Exactly.
As opposed to choosing one thing we're working on. And maybe one of my girlfriends says that she's really working on not having resting bee face this year. Because she says it's really damaging her relationships, that when people look at her, they're like, oh my God, she's cranky, and so she's kind of put this wall up where she's like, I'm not cranky. But then she looked in, she got some pictures sent to her where she's like, oh my God, I really do have resting bee face. So her big thing this year is like trying to work on like having a smile on her face, you know what I mean? And trying to get that.
That's a big change.
That's a huge change.
Because
it's a huge
that
effort.
Alone, right? Talk about rising, right? If you rise to the occasion of just changing your face, what that does, right, from a psychological, mental serotonin, dopamine level, you get a dopamine drip when you smile versus not. Like that's just in and of itself a total change for a person, because if you have a resting bee face all the time, that's a different neurochemical than a smile face, which is may seem small and ridiculous to some people, but wow, what a change in your whole attitude. It's kind of like going from Eeyore to Tigger. I call them Eeyore, like when people are Eeyores.
I love Eeyore, but no one wants to hang out with Eeyore.
Right.
And it also
he's endearing, but
attracting.
What'd you say?
It also changes what you're attracting.
Right. Well, so it's the vibe and your tribe, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing? If your vibe is a certain way, your tribe is going to be that certain way. So, I mean, I have clients and I have people that listen to this all the time talking about like change your tribe, and the way you do it is you got to have a different vibe. So that means you got to work on that pillar or that piece of your wellness wheel of how are you presenting in the world. And that's just, I think, some of the most basic. Don't go out and people go, my goal is to like make $1 million. I have one client that's working on making $100,000 in a business every single month. And I'm like, that's a very large goal. I'm like, how about we just take a daily breath and just do something basic? She's really on this whole like 100,000. It's a business that she could do that in, but it's just too big. And she fell short January by like $37,000. Great. She did great. But instead of seeing it as a stacked win, she sees that as a failure because it wasn't the 100,000. And it's like, because the mindset shift on that was too big. It wasn't there. It wasn't like, I will accept the smaller piece. And then, it all integrates back into what Michelle was just saying is like, okay.
So it changes her relationship with her business.
Yeah. It changes your relationship with your business.
Rather than a $60,000 win, it's a $100,000 loss.
Right.
It's like you just approach everything differently.
Right. And
it's interesting that you're talking about that too, because I think if we only have our goals attached to our job, which is why I have the Wellness Connection, workforce wellness that's about the individual as opposed to team goals.
Mm-hmm.
If we're only thinking about my business is going to get to this level, or at work I'm going to get to this level of productivity, and that's the only place we're scoring ourselves, then if we don't win there and we're not even paying attention to the other. I was reading something the other day that like just being a nice person is actually good enough.
Yes.
Like if you're, and it was about legacy, right?
Yes.
So if like Les Brown would say, shoot for the moon. If I land in the stars, cool, right? So I've got big lofty goals too. I haven't hit them yet. If I only was thinking that was what made me valuable, if I hit that number, that magic moon number, I'm constantly here in the stars, I would think I'm failing. But legacy, I think when people are wanting to make that kind of money, there's a legacy component to it. What am I going to do with the money? What does that stand for? But legacy, like think about someone in your life who maybe was a grandmother or another elderly person that you never even knew what they did for a living. You had no idea how much money they made or where they even lived. Or if they did live, they lived modestly. But the legacy they left in your life was being outstandingly kind and loving.
Right.
And that left a bigger impression. It wouldn't have mattered if they made $100,000 a month or not. The fact that that person was loving and kind to you was like one of the biggest things that ever happened to you. Had nothing to do with money. So if we're only scoring ourselves on where we are professionally as far as money and numbers, then that's really super depressing.
Which is what many people do, which is, I mean, that's what a predominance of what I see in day to day with people I work with. They're really even, at the base level, that's what they're working with. And me talking to them about like, we're not talking about that right now. We'll talk about the finances. We'll talk about how to be financially like solid, but it's really about like, what about those other pieces like that you're missing, and not be so focused on that, because that's not where your happiness is going to come from, because that's the make or break of it.
You have to refocus from you have to get out of $30,000 of debt. You don't think of it that way. Just do something today that contributes to that.
Right.
And just keep doing it on a daily basis.
And that's where that,
the stronger we are as people, the more likely you are to get out of debt. It's like putting the gas, the gas mask, the air, the oxygen mask, not the gas mask. We don't want the gas mask. The oxygen is funny. Good slip. Well, I mean, that's actually kind of that's an interesting analogy, really, when you think about it. Choose your mask wisely.
Yes.
Are you putting a gas mask on your face or an oxygen mask on your face?
Are you toxified or are you detoxified?
Are you putting your own light out? Because I've done it myself. Guilty as charged. I think any high performing person, it's kind of like you and I have talked about gymnastics this way too, because you were able to achieve a seat on the Team USA, which, by the way, if you're listening to this, is near impossible. There's 6 girls, right? If I remember
Well, there's
correctly,
6
right?
girls on the Olympic whittle down team, and then 30 on the main team.
But still, 36. I mean, like, you've got millions of little girls literally grinding, okay? Grinding every day for an entire
We were grinding.
entire childhood, okay? Now, part of me feels like I didn't get that college scholarship because I got injured. And so
Right.
therefore I failed. But then when I think back on it, and you and I are going to totally 100% agree about this, I never felt like I was failing because every day I was doing the Romanian drills. I was showing up 2 hours before practice and training. I literally out-trained most people on our team because I had to, because I was about to get tall and I knew it. And that's also my personality.
From being a team peanut to like she rose.
I grew like 6 inches in like a heartbeat. I was running after time because I was a little older than some of you, and I learned how to grind. But now I have one shoulder operated on, the other one shoulder operated on, the other one I'm trying not to. Both Achilles have been repaired. I've got back problems because I used sports as a way to quantify myself.
Right. Well, and that's what people do. They find their identity in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what when I work with my pro athletes, we're constantly talking about your identity cannot only be this sport because it's going to end.
It's going to end. And I think that the other thing that I don't know how it happened. And I've recently listened to Cam Awesome, the boxer. Have you ever heard him speak? Amazing. He talks about the power of failure. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I never felt like I wasn't winning as a gymnast because I knew showing up, I already won.
Right.
Somehow, and it wasn't our coaches that taught us that.
No, it wasn't.
I don't know, Kim. Maybe it was. I don't know. I just knew
that
we had
my effort. I'm pretty sure that was not it.
It was not it, right? No. I don't know. Somehow I had, God touched me with a wand of magic that made me realize that my effort was enough.
Well,
I feel this way about business.
I think that you and I, and this translates to business, I think that you and I learned, and I would think I'm going to name some other people like Topsy, remember Topsy, and right, and Robin and Leach, all the girls in our little group, right?
Yeah, Kimmy.
Owens, right?
Yeah.
So weird. But we all learned resiliency, and it wasn't something we were being directly taught. It's a resiliency that comes through being grindy and gritty and following a purpose on a daily, because we weren't doing an end goal on a daily, even though the coaches were doing an end goal on a daily. We were just doing like what you just said at the beginning about like, I could hold that planche and I was a national champion and held that record forever because why? Because I would go in and do it over and over and over and over. And why? Because I was consistent, and that built resiliency, and it toughened me up because I would be made essentially to stay in that position out of torture to do the next one. Because it wasn't just that one. It was multiple different things that we each had to do, but that builds resiliency and toughness, mental toughness, and a way to be in the world that it makes you rise. I would never have said these things back then because I didn't know that, but I knew I was resilient. I knew Michelle was resilient because I knew I'd watch. I was witness to her, right, being in the gym, and there'd be tears and I'd be like, oh my God, this is like insane. And people that, when they come through life and talk to, obviously in my practice, it's a little different, but in just regular life every day, and come and say life is hard. And I'm like in my head going, you want to see hard? Let's take some reel back to my tapes back in the day and talk about hard people. They've had a hard day because, somebody spilled something on a rug, or somebody did something, cut them off in the car. And I'm like, oh, you want to spend 8 hours in the gym with me? Because let's go. That's,
let's go. Right. I think that we were taught that the doing of the daily, and this is why Kim, you and I are always in the same wavelength.
Yes.
We made a decision to stay in the wellness field. And honestly, I kept on waiting for the real job to happen. I went and educated myself, and I kept on getting pulled back into wellness. And now on this side of life, in the process of the pause prior to the holidays, where I made a decision to stop my business and relaunch with a new way of approaching mission first wellness. Okay.
Right.
I realized that all roads have led me here.
Right.
You know, and that really, honestly, it's almost like God kept the big corporate job from happening so I could be here in this season for my mom to the capacity that I am. And
Right.
going out and getting my mom out and outside into nature and sitting by the lake, and we're just sitting there, I realized the magnitude, the hugeness of that. And what a blessing to get this gritty girl who's a doer to get that lesson at 55 to 58. Like the lessons I'm learning when I go to coffee hour with the ladies in my neighborhood, and some of them are still married, men they've been married to for literally 60, 70 years. Okay. Many of them are widows. So 15 of them on last Tuesday got together, and I wasn't able to make that one, but the one before there was like 18 of us, right? From ages 58 to 94. And you're listening to their life achievements. None of them are telling you the balance in their checking account. They're
No.
talking about their grandbabies, their grandchildren, their careers, the books they read, the books they wrote, the things they're doing, you know what I mean? That how they're actually selectively slowing down and continuing to stay active mentally by
Right.
challenging themselves. Like this whole wellness thing is not like a youth game, which
No.
it also has become to really annoy me that somehow the only thing that's valid is youth. And I think as gymnasts, we really learn this because our career cuts really short.
Short.
But that only youth is important. But now that on this side of it here in Sun City, in the original planned community, retirement community, the first one ever, Del Webb created this. It was the first ever planned community ever and first retirement community. And we have 8 recreation centers, and we have pools, and we have 8 golf courses. And I mean, we have like a huge
All
recreation piece.
active. All things to be active.
People are playing cards, they're making china, they're in the wood shop, they're photography, they're doing things to be out there, be social. Bingo, I mean, like 1,000 people will show up for bingo. I mean, and bingo is really great for your brain, by the way. And I had to take a whole new look at bingo now. My mom loves bingo.
Concentration.
And remembering the number and remembering there's this very important piece of it. But to be in this place where you realize, God, how stupid is it really? And I'm going to say that completely stupid. It is to spend your life waiting to be like between 20 and 30.
Right.
Like those 10 years. And after
Right.
30, you start to fall off the wagon. Well,
Mhm.
you're potentially, hopefully, if you're really lucky, you're going to live to 100.
Right.
So let's say you do wait until 72 to take your full retirement and Social Security.
Right.
Okay. You might have 30 years to live in retirement.
Right.
So this idea of
What are you gonna do?
retirement it's a silly, like when I'm working and then I'm retired. Well, the people that retire from purpose are the ones that leave early. They don't
That's
make
right.
it to 100.
That
They
is
leave the planet early because they're not taking care of themselves, and all
Right.
of their purpose is tied to their work.
right.
And and where if you watch the Blue Zones, I loved that documentary because it talked about, number one, you know, one of the main things over cultures that have people living older is they believe that having elders as part of your daily life, not like you just, once you get to a certain age, you get put on a shelf into a nursing home. And for some people, that's a necessity. And for some people, they don't have the luxury that I do to be able to take care of their parent. But if you look in all the countries where the people living to 100, having a family or community dynamic where the elder
Right.
person is built into the life. Like you see me on social. My mom, just last month, we took a motorcycle ride. I had a bunch of biker chicks come with me. There's about 8 of us or so. We rode out to a ranch where there's horses. I'm not ever going to not bring my mom when there's horses involved. So one of my biker chick friends had just sold her bike. She drove my mom, and mom came with me as the chase car with the biker chicks. Okay. And we had brunch. And I did a pillar assessment thing with them for fun. My mom got out a piece of paper and she did what she could do for it. You know what I mean? If you watch my social, you'll know that my mom is with me when I'm the vice president of the Sons and Daughters of Italy chapter here in the Phoenix area. My mom's at dinner, and there's 35 people that have Italian descent somewhere in there, all talking at the same time. Laughing. At some point, somebody gets choked up and cries about their mom.
Yep.
And she's in the middle of it. And she says, Michelle, it feels just like Brooklyn. You know what I mean? And she doesn't say a lot when she's there because it's a lot going on, but I'll get in the car and I'll say, Mom, did you have fun? She goes, oh my God, that was so great. So continuing to give my mom fun and community and people watching opportunities and the opportunity to get overwhelmed socially is really teaching me that this whole idea of, oh, I need to be a size 4 forever and make $1 million. And if I'm skinny and I'm making a lot of money, then I'm worthy. Well, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's not what life's about. I'm not disqualifying making a lot of money.
That's right, because it's not part of the rising. You're just living outside. I call that living outside of the rise. You're living in something totally different. I don't know what you want to call it. There's lots of names for it, but you're not living in the evolution of self. You're living in the expectations of somebody and something else in an environment that's not realistic for you. And that's what lots of people, like the grand majority.
Or even possible. I mean, like I had a person in my life, very generally said, that bought into the youth culture and was doing some very unhealthy things. They almost died.
Yep.
Okay, because you're chasing something that's unchaseable.
Right.
But being Italian, Irish, older people in my culture are respected. Like my grandmother, with all of her wrinkles and her completely gray hair and her wrinkly hands, she was literally the most beautiful person on the planet to me. So I never feared aging. Now, that being said, I'm still going to make sure I take care of myself, but you can't undo the aging process completely. You are going to get older if you're lucky. And if you're going to do that, how are you going to do that? Showing up for yourself daily. And realizing that when you're eating an apple, I remember my grandmother eating an apple and she would slice it up and I remember vividly her eating an apple and enjoying the heck out of that apple. We spend all of our time rushing to the next thing,
right?
Doing the next thing. And we don't spend time enjoying the face that's in front of us, enjoying the job that we're doing. Or, hey, how about this? If you hate your job, leave it.
Leave it. Right.
Because guess what? Every day that you spend doing something you hate is a wasted day.
Well, it's taking away from your purpose of what you want. You're doing it just because you have to, right? And so there's other things out there that you could be doing that could make you, I have this conversation all the time with clients. You could be doing something else that could make you just as much money and you could be happier, but the fear gets in the way. So then we talk about that, but it's like, if you're not happy in something, you move along or you adapt and pivot and change. Like, people talk about relationships. Sometimes people can't leave a relationship in certain ways, but you say, okay, but how do you pivot in it? If you're not happy and there's other things that are keeping you, how do you pivot? How do you adjust? Same in a job. How do you pivot? How do you adjust? If you're eating poorly, you have to still pivot and adjust. You can't just be like, well, I'm always going to be this way. I hear that all the time. I'm sure you do too. Like with people saying like, oh, well, I'm 50. I have clients says I'm 50. I'm almost dead. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I joke with her. I'm like, well, you're going to be in the grave next week. So what are we even working on? And she'll laugh. But that actually motivates her because I show her how ridiculous that is. I'm like, you're supposed to be living to at least 100. So let's go. And, and she's very active, but she's like, I'm 50. I'm not with anybody. I'm like, no, girl, you are not dead. Let's go.
We've got to redefine that whole thing about singleness and being married and being coupled up too.
Right.
Because guess what? Most of the nursing homes are full of women. I hate to tell you.
Yes, they are.
And so having female friendships and being able to be see yourself as valuable because you are just one person yourself doing nothing other than being a human being on the planet.
Right.
Is enough.
Well, that's why it's so important for people to have that year of you and also taking care of themselves in the rise kind of way, because it no matter if you're male or female, if you're not doing your own daily, what are you doing? Because you're going to be in that space where, Michelle makes a point about, women being vastly outnumbering men in nursing homes or even in retirement communities. Why? Mm-hmm. Because the vast majority of men and, even upcoming young men still are focused on the identity of the work and the job instead of themselves. And then what does it do? Mm-hmm. They go to their 50 and 60-year-old birthdays, they retire, they take their retirement and they haven't found purpose. I try to make sure all of my clients, like Michelle's talking about, all my clients need to have like a hobby. They need to have something active and social. They need to have something that moves their body. They need to have something that's, in travel. People are so afraid to travel. It's like, oh my God, you need to have this, like, I call it the exposure base. You need to have a resource base of something outside of your 20-mile radius, so you have something else like inputting into your brain other than you going and coming from work, you going and
I
coming to
love that you're bringing up travel, because I have a travel partner.
Yes, I knew that.
I
Yeah.
have a travel partner because as a business partner, for two reasons. One, what you're just talking about, but also if I'm in a company, when I'm doing a wellness connection program, I'm assessing the company. And if they have like a large sales staff that is traveling and they're staying in motel next stop before hell, without naming any brands and making fun of people in a public space, right? And then that's stressful. If you find yourself traveling 5 days out of the week and staying in a hellhole,
Yep.
and that's your life, right? So how can I help the company elevate up in an affordable way where you can actually start having your employees out there, or your 1099s out there, actually traveling in a way
Traveling.
that is comfortable and affordable for the company, and potentially even revenue generating for the company?
Well, it's so
So-
interesting that you say that, because it's sort of an aside, and I'm being mindful of time. Michelle's just going to have to come on maybe next week. We'll just get her back
Nice.
on, because we need to continue this. But it's interesting you say it, because I have a group of women that are working in a company right now that I work with as an individual set, but they all are talking about how the company hierarchy is very much about cheapening, and I literally use that word on purpose, cheapening every possible way. Like they'll send them out on their thing. Like they'll send them to Minnesota, for instance, and they'll have them there the day before the actual conference that they need to be there for. But then the company doesn't want to pay for their dinner, their activities, all the things that happen that are the day before. And they will move them into a crummy hotel. I'll say it that way, a crummy hotel that's like really, I call it soul sucking.
Yeah.
And then move them into the conference ready hotel that's much nicer for that day. And if they have to have them stay another day because it's a cheaper flight to pay the company as well, it's like insane. I'm like,
Yep.
and I try to tell them, because they're influencers within the company, these women, I'm like, you've got to band together to talk about the money saving and cost effectiveness of this lack of bouncing. You don't need to take a 6 a.m. flight or a red eye and then put into, like, you can do this much more effectively and efficiently and healthy to put everyone in like a nicer place. And then it's a consistency across the board. But that mindset of save money here, they're not thinking about their employees' morale. They're not thinking about, like, it's just unbelievable.
And you're like it's a good segue before, because I know we're both looking
Yep.
at time with the wellness connection.
Yes.
What is wellness? And also, it costs 3 times as much to replace an employee as it is to keep one.
Right.
So you want to be able to be the employer of choice to attract, retain, and reward your key performers and your people, period. So you can keep them. So you have to replace them, because it's much more expensive to replace an employee who's burnt out because you made them sit in airports for like 3 years, taking red eyes, and they've been eating McDonald's because they couldn't afford to buy healthy food, and they're away from their families and stressed out, and you're doing nothing with your benefits and nothing to address the mental. I've been that traveling person where I've been in 3 cities a week as a consultant. It is a grind, okay? A grind. And if you're a company and you're not paying attention to your employees' wellness, let me tell you something. Being an employer of choice, especially here in the West Valley, as we are exponentially growing in the manufacturing space, call centers, logistics, transportation, all of that growth over here in the West Valley, it's like a buyer's market or a seller's market in real estate.
Right.
If you're not a company that is spending time and energy and making sure that your employees are well, you will not be the employer of choice, and you will lose.
Right.
Because the amount of people that are able to work are going to go with the companies that care. They're not going to go with your company that's grinding like that. They're just not.
Well, and it's kind of to the rise culture. We're much more, that's why I've focused on this, and you're focusing on the wellness and elevating, is we are much more now focusing on people being in a reset of integrating something that's more evolution based for individuals and collectives. And I think that that's that would be my key takeaway. If you're listening and you're in the company sphere, okay, but if you're an individual, it's all generalizable back and forth, because that's just a better way to put your life into a forward trajectory that's also healthy, and it gives you your downtime, it gives you your successes, it gives you your sense of purpose, and all of those things. And so I want to make sure that I know we are all watching time, because we all have things, but Michelle is putting up in the chat for tomorrow. We will make sure that on the backside of the show there will be links to, if you want to register for her conference tomorrow that I am talking at, for my little section on burnout and essentially compassion fatigue, essentially. In a lot of ways, in companies and also in wellness. Please join in. But she will be happy to, and we can put up her information to get her there. You can find her on LinkedIn. Michelle, where are you on LinkedIn again?
You can find me under Choose Healthy Change, which is my company page, or also under my name, Michelle Michelizzi, which people will need to write down the spelling of that. But if you just search for Michelle Michelizzi, you'll find me.
It's with two Z's.
Yeah, 2 L's in the Michelle and 2 Z's in the last name. But I also want to say that if they go to events.choosehealthychange.com, the entire year, it'll be third Thursday. There'll be something about wellness for workplaces, wellness for individuals, wellness for nonprofits. We didn't talk a lot about today, but using wellness as a community catalyst.
Yes.
To help fuel and fund people's missions and get more missions reached, So there's that part of it. But if you go to choosehealthychange.com, everything links through there, including my one sheets for all the programs.
And Michelle's accessible also for consults obviously she can do Zoom with you. She can do Teams with you. She's out on the West Coast essentially. So if you're in that area, please stop in and see her. She's right there. She's accessible. She's pretty easy to get to from where she is. Maybe you'll find Savannah Guthrie's mother.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
It's terrible. It's terrible. And
I know.
Fortunately, that's happened. Not fortunately, but it's a wrong word, but it's happening in the Tucson area. I'm in the Phoenix area, but still, I think it is a very interesting case.
I know. You're out there, though.
Praying for them.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we will talk about having Michelle back. Everyone, thank you so much for having Michelle on the show, and we will see you next week.
See you later, Kimmy. It was so good to catch up.
Nice to talk to you.